Welcome to Trailblazers. I'm your host, Melody Bradford. Every thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem has people working behind the scenes who don't just invest in companies, they invest in people, ideas, and possibility. Today's guest has spent his career helping innovators transform bold ideas into thriving businesses. As Chief Operating Officer and Chief Investment Officer for Ben Franklin Technology Partners of Northeastern Pennsylvania, Wayne Barz has helped shape one of Pennsylvania's most influential engines for entrepreneurship and innovation. Ben Franklin Technology Partners is nationally recognized as one of the country's most active seed-stage investors, providing capital, strategic guidance, mentorship, and invaluable connections to entrepreneurs and manufacturers across the 21-county region. Under Wayne's leadership, the investment team supports a portfolio of approximately 175 companies that have collectively attracted hundreds of millions of dollars in follow-on investment while creating jobs and strengthening Pennsylvania's innovation economy. Prior to leading investments, Wayne directed the Ben Franklin Tech Ventures Incubator, helping launch more than 120 startup companies. He earned both his undergraduate degree in economics and his MBA from Lehigh University. Today, we're talking about leadership, entrepreneurship, investing in innovation, taking calculated risks, building companies that matter, and why some entrepreneurs break through while others don't. Wayne, welcome to Trailblazers.
Thank you, Melody. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
I know you've had some great guests on here that are true trailblazers. So.
Oh, well, you joined that crowd, let me tell you. You know, so Ben Franklin, let me start there. For listeners who may not know, Ben Franklin Technology Partners, what problem does the organization exist to solve, and why has its mission become even more important today than when it began? But tell me some of the companies that have come out of there so that listeners are kind of aware of what has started out here.
Yeah, well, the history of Ben Franklin goes back into the early 1980s, and so the first part of your question there is, why do we exist today as opposed to yesterday? It's the same, and it is to evolve the economy. All right, there was a famous economist named Joseph Schumpeter who talked about creative destruction. There is constant change happening, and we see it every day with the technologies that show up. I used to think that, back in the early 2000s, companies were showing up with software that were going to solve all these problems for business, inefficiencies, all of that sort of thing. And now we're hearing the same problems still exist, but now they're being solved with AI. And so there's just this constant turnover in ideas and technology that if you're not proactively engaging in supporting that, I think you fall behind as a region, as a state, for us here in the Lehigh Valley for sure. Some of the companies that we've worked with over the years, that the household names are certainly Orasure is well known,
yes.
Multiple buildings, but we've been involved with lots of other companies. Computer Aid.
Wow.
Computer Aid got started up in our little incubator up on the Mountaintop campus back in the early 1980s.
Wow.
Lots of 25 and 50 employee companies. And again, we cover 21 counties. So we're obviously here in the Lehigh Valley, and this is where we're based, but we go all the way to the New York border. So Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Reading, all of those areas are also part of the
21 counties. I mean, that's a pretty vast region that extends well beyond Lehigh and Northampton, for sure.
It does, yep.
Yeah, that's exciting. You've spent much of your career growing with Ben Franklin, from helping startups inside Tech Ventures to now leading investments across the organization. What first attracted you to this work, and what has kept you there?
Well, I'll tell you what keeps me there is, we are surrounded by really smart people. Everybody that shows up has a history, professional history, a scientific history. Lots of PhDs show up at our door as founders of companies, and so the human drama is fascinating. But when you sort of overlay that, sort of the matrix of the complex technologies that they're bringing to us in, advanced materials and semiconductors and all the different life science things that we get involved in. Smart people doing complicated things is just never gets old.
Yeah. And, I mean, I'm going to go off script here a little bit because I want to ask the question when somebody shows up on your doorstep, you have PhD or, and they're building something, say, from the ground up, there has to be a certain level of vulnerability there, right? It's one, possibly their baby, two, they may be asking for money or help and, really kind of exposing themselves. What have you found? What leadership lessons or what advice do you give them when they come through the door?
Simplify your story, and it's always funny. I'll take a first meeting with a brand new prospect. They'd sent an email and they sent some information. Now we're meeting for the first time, and they take a deep breath and then they talk for 45 minutes. And it's
like, wow.
Yeah, no, you have to stop and breathe and ask questions. That's because most of them have never done this before. Probably 3/4 of our clients have never had to raise capital before. They've never had to build a team from scratch, get a first customer. All of those things are hard, and we've done it over and over and over again. And so getting them to simplify their story, and I sometimes insult them and I'll say, listen, could you just boil down your 40 years of scientific experience into like 3 minutes?
Yeah.
It's kind of insulting, but you've really got to get to that point in order to have success at capital raising, convincing customers, all of those things you've got to do.
The elevator pitch, sure.
Yeah, you got to get that down.
You've seen, I'm sure, thousands of entrepreneurs pitch ideas. Within the first few minutes, what separates the founders who immediately capture your attention from those who don't?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think I like to see a founder that thinks big. You've got to have a big vision of where this can go, but you've also got to know what to do with the next 3 minutes of your day. So sort of thinking big and acting small, that doesn't quite capture it, but that's what you have to be tactical as well as strategic.
Yeah.
And you often can't figure that out in the first 5 minutes. But which is why you sort of dig into what have you done before. And then, we spend a lot of time with our clients. Our team spends numerous hours with the client, understanding them, getting them ready for us. Then they come in and they meet the rest of the team, do their pitch, get a bunch of Q&A. Then there's a bunch of follow-up Q&A. So we, really get to know the clients. And so as we go, we start to learn more. Oh, this person's going to need a little bit of this or a little bit of that, which you can't capture in 5 minutes.
And so is that process the same every single time? Like, is it the same type of, lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat? Is it the same sort of process that you follow? And what does that process look like?
Yeah, I think the process is the same, but the outcomes are different.
Okay.
There are programs and initiatives like ours across the country, across the world, that do things in what I think of as a very much cohort driven. So we're going to take applications, we're going to select 20, and then we're going to put them all through the same educational steps and processes. We do not do that. So we bring every company in and we meet them where they are, and we identify resources that are specifically useful, in our opinions, to that company. Because we're not focused in any technology area. We're technology agnostic, as they say in our business. So the technical capabilities of the team, the business capabilities of the team are all unique. The salesmanship ability of the team, all of them are different. And so we try to very carefully select the resources, the way that we coach, the funding that we put in based on where that company is at the moment.
That's incredible. So Ben Franklin is known as one of the nation's most active seed stage investors. When you decide to invest, what are you really betting on?
Can this founder and this team with this plan and this product get a first couple customers? I mean, so many of our clients, they don't have any customers yet. So their revenue is zero. The product is often not done, or the software, whatever the thing is. the team's never done this before. They haven't raised any money yet. Maybe mom gave them some money, friends and family. But so we have to start assessing right away. Do I believe they're going to be able to manage the ups and downs that are going to occur here, and will they be able to stick it out and at least get to those first couple of customers? Because now you've got something, you know. Now the challenges change at that point. Now, can we scale a sales and marketing operation of the business? But at least we know somebody out there cares about the value proposition that company is trying to put in front of them.
Yeah, and I imagine that's probably a pretty scary position for both of you at that point, right? I mean, are we going to have customers? Is this going to work? And then at the end of the day, is your investment as an organization going to come to fruition? Have you ever had one that didn't?
Have we ever had a client that didn't come to fruition? Oh, yeah. There are plenty of those. I mean, because when you think about the time at which we're getting involved, again, we're sort of in the industry, in the financing industry, we're sort of known as pre-seed. So we're not even the seed, the way that the industry sort of looks at us. We're just some good soil, I guess. I'm not sure if the metaphor works, but so there are lots of places for that business to stumble and just not get momentum.
Is it heartbreaking?
Sometimes, yeah. We really take a long-term relationship approach with the clients. I mean, we end up with an equity-like investment in companies, and that can be 20 years.
Wow.
Until the company exits or sells. So we're in it with them through all that time. So yeah, you get to know the founder. I don't know how my team does it. I haven't really asked them, but I try to stay away from them personally, right? I don't know if I want to know your wife and kids. I think I'd rather just keep it, clinically on the business focused. But especially you see some of them really put everything they've got into the business financially, emotionally, and if it doesn't work, that can be tough.
Yeah. So looking back over your career, are there one or two companies that perfectly capture what Ben Franklin can do when innovation and mentorship and investment all come together?
Yeah, well, there's more than one or two. A couple I thought of here. One is Life Air. So I don't know if you've met or heard of Dr. Warlow.
They actually created a system so that it can pretty much cleanse the air, and I think they had a huge uptick during COVID time.
You got it. You got it. Yeah. So for in vitro fertilization clinics in particular, that was the founder, Dr. Katie Warlow's background as a
exciting story
as a doc, and determined that the high failure rate in IVF clinics was largely due to the air quality.
Wow.
So that is what drove her into developing this both in-duct system, and now they've got a system for within a room to clean the air, 99, and I always get this wrong, 7 log, I think it is 99.99999.
Wow.
And, that's just one of the great stories, right? It took a little bit of investment from us for sure. We've introduced them to other investors that have participated. Senior leadership in the company, we made those introductions. They're also a great story in our world because we helped invest in them when they didn't have much, and now they've grown. They've got about 25 people, and they're in Berks County now. And now we also have this manufacturing grant program to help big established companies or a company of their size. So now we've made some money available to them to help get their in-room unit certified for distribution in Europe.
Oh,
so
wow.
This is what I meant earlier when I said we take these long-term relationships, with the companies, which is, we really like. And so they've taken all of that, mentorship and introductions that we've been able to make, and capital has, I think, really helped them out. The other companies, Orb Weaver is one that's sort of behind the scenes. They're in downtown Bethlehem now, 20 5 people or so. A couple of founders built basically a software platform that lets the electronics industry more efficiently move the billions and billions of components that are in everything. So instead of spreadsheets, we're going to use this platform, which really manages that whole process.
Wow.
Again, same thing. A lot of introductions along the way. We've got a couple of formalized ways of doing this now. So we've got a structured mentorship program where we get some of our up-and-coming founders connected to experienced entrepreneurs over sort of a structured 6-month process. We've got internship programs where we provide interns, students of color and women from the regional schools, get them into these companies to get them exposed to technology. But then, obviously, the companies get an intern to help them out.
That's awesome.
So that's all part of
growth.
Part of the culture. Yep.
Yeah, so let's talk about team. Every successful organization is ultimately about people. Tell me about the team you've built, not only at Ben Franklin, but also the collaboration internally as well as externally, and why it's such an advantage for entrepreneurs. How have you seen that really kind of take shape? And how important are collaborations both internally and externally? Because, I mean, it's hard to grow without them,
Yeah.
Thank God we're all cohesive here in the region, but tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and we really are.
Yeah,
I mean,
we are.
I've been in economic development here a long time. The
Yeah.
Lehigh Valley is tight when you look at other regions.
Yeah.
Well, I love the team we've got there. We call it the portfolio group. There's 8 of us, including me. We're organized more or less geographically because of the large region that we cover. So we've got a regional manager we call it the Pocono Northeast in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area. We've got somebody up in Bloomsburg covering a bunch of the counties up in the greater Susquehanna Valley. We've got somebody in Berks County. We've got a couple of people here in the Lehigh Valley. And what's really cool is, when Ken from the Pocono region, he's got a client that comes in that needs a connection to somebody. The rest of us just let's, you got to meet this person from Reading, where it could be competitive,
right? Because
Ken wants to support his region and his clients, but we don't do it at the expense of the other regions. So, that's a culture that we've got cooking there, and I love it. I love finding out. I don't know. I've got adult kids, and it's just so funny to find out like 3 weeks later that they got together and did something that I didn't know about. Like, can they do that? I guess they can do that. It's great, and that my team's doing that too. They're solving problems together that I don't have to be involved in, and I find out about it later. It's like, that's really cool.
That works.
I love that. That to me feels good.
Yeah. One company you've been involved with is Dynaline. And I wanted to talk about that relationship and why companies like Dynaline represent the kind of innovation that Pennsylvania should be particularly proud of.
Well, Dynaline's an interesting story, and that one goes back a ways. The founder there was running, does he still run? I don't know if he still runs, sort of an industrial services business in Whitehall. Mm-hmm. And that business was growing, but so it's a lot of HVAC type of servicing that he does. And a lot of his clients had cooling needs. Heat transfer is the phrase. So if you need to cool down a building, you need to pull the heat out of it. One of the ways you do that is you got fluid that runs through the building, you take it outside. It's air conditioning, basically. But there were a lot of large industrial uses that needed specialized chemistries that he didn't have. So he got connected to a Lehigh professor, and they developed some proprietary formulas, and then came to us with that as the startup idea. It's a very different business. I mean, when you're building a business to provide, really service and maintenance versus developing a proprietary thing that you have to sell.
Right.
Those are two different things. And one of the things I kind of remember coaching them on is, you got to create 2 separate companies here and begin to capitalize this new business, Dynaline, separately. So it's cool to see that grow, right? So now there's 20 people or so in Whitehall. They've got facilities, a couple of other facilities in the U.S., and continue to grow and continue to innovate. A lot of the data centers need this heat extraction. So there's fluid running through data centers all over the place, and they're making some sales in that space.
It's an exciting story. Are there any particular companies that come to mind over the course of your tenure that you're particularly proud of, or quite closely aligned with?
Me personally, well, no, I don't have any favorites. No, you're not going to trick me. No way. This is being recorded. All my children, I love them all the same.
That's great. Well, certainly, I'm sure that there are, feathers in your cap that are probably more, exciting than maybe others for different reasons. But let's talk a little bit about Venture Idol. You've been closely involved with that initiative, which is a startup pitch competition, and I imagine other startup pitch competitions. Yep. Beyond award funding, what do these competitions really accomplish for entrepreneurs, and how important are they? I mean, essentially, you're doing, a regional Shark Tank to a degree.
It is,
right?
It is a bit, and there's, I think the biggest value in that, maybe the biggest value, is the preparation. So now these founders, they haven't stood up in front of 200 people before and told their story in a 5-minute condensed manner. Most of them haven't. And so, this is prepping them for the road, is maybe a way to look at it. Because if they're gonna be raising capital, they're gonna have to tell that story 8 million times. And the better they get at that, the more success they're likely to have. So we spend a lot of time with the companies getting that storytelling down. I think sometimes storytelling is underrated as a as a skill. Mm-hmm. But boy, if it takes
Makes
you forever,
a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we limit them. I mean, you've been to the event. They get 5 minutes, and it's so funny because they know it, and we rehearse it a couple times, so they know what 5 minutes feels like.
Yeah.
And then they get up there, and I've still got to go up because I'm emceeing this event, so I end up having to go up the steps, stand next to them, and we start to yank them off the stage because 5 minutes goes fast.
Yeah. And I'm going to, again, go off script here, but a lot of those companies present, wonderful ideas. And even if they don't get funded through the pitch competition, there may be somebody out in the audience that's like, I really love that concept because, I don't know, maybe it, relates to an industry or a hobby that they particularly enjoy or love or whatever. Mm-hmm. How do people get involved in seed stage investment? If somebody wanted to grow their portfolio and maybe see about, investing in some of these companies alongside Ben Franklin or as part of, how do people do that?
Well, there are really there's two angel groups that operate here in the Lehigh Valley. Most of the angel groups, although now that I say that, each of the two here operate a little bit differently. One operates like a network where the group of investors, they have 50 members or so. They hear company pitches a couple times a month. And when the company leaves the room, if there's enough money around the table, I'd throw 10,000 in, I'd throw 5,000 in. Then they'll go into a due diligence, and if they make an investment, they form an entity that takes the money in, and then one entity makes the investment in the company. The other group in the region here is forming more of a fund. So you put money in at the beginning, and now the fund makes the investments as members agree to the investment. So I guess if the question is, if I'm out here listening and I'm thinking about investing in early stage companies, I would reach out to Ben Franklin, and we can get you connected to the groups or give you some other education. Because there are some rules, around it. net worth requirements, et cetera, that should take a look at. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Yep. Yep.
Entrepreneurship is often romanticized, and you've seen the reality. What's the hardest truth every entrepreneur eventually has to learn, do you think?
Yeah, it is romanticized.
It is.
I think that's Shark Tank.
I heard a client recently. He's like, I tried the entrepreneurship route, and I've decided that I just want to buy a company because at this point, there's established inventory, clients, real estate. There's just a lot of different things.
Yep.
What do you think, the entrepreneur that wants to start from the ground up needs to know?
Well, and I used to teach entrepreneurship at Lafayette. Lehigh grad, taught at Lafayette. I don't know what that means, but and there were, I'm looking for content. And you look at all these graphs, and there are these graphs of how smooth the funding happens. First you get some pre-seed money, then you get some seed money, then you get Series A, and then Series B, and then you go public. And it's like this perfect curve. The curve doesn't look like that.
No.
The curve is up and down and up and down. So it is a grind. Usually we're talking about people here. If Tim Cook gets sick today and can't go to work, well, there's a machine that is running at Apple.
Right.
That will continue to get by the day.
Yeah.
That's not true inside these startups.
Right.
I mean, if it's two people and one of them's sick, well, you've lost 50% of your
capacity.
effort,
Yeah.
And that can take, a toll on relationships, husband,
Finances,
wife,
personal
finances.
relations, yeah, all of that.
So it is complicated, but I also have seen it be like the most rewarding thing possible. You get that first customer, and you get the product thingy to work, and those are good days.
Yeah. If someone walked into your office tomorrow with an incredible idea, but only one opportunity to convince you, what would they absolutely need to communicate, do you think?
Yeah, and it's not the idea. I think it is, do you have relationships of customers that you can reach out to and try to sell this to? Because if you're starting with it's called relationship-based selling, right? Mm-hmm. So if you come out of an industry after 20 years and you've been involved in the industry and individuals, like I have a personal relationship with somebody at this potential customer, that person's going to open an email from you or return a phone call. Mm-hmm. But if you got to start all cold, making 100, 500 emails,
it's going to be a lot tougher.
And so we love to hear that founder has, or the team has, direct sales experience into the customer segment that you're chasing. It doesn't have to be the same product or service, but you understand how those customers make purchasing decisions. Mm-hmm. Some of our clients are selling things or services that are, tens of thousands of dollars a month. That's a big sale, so you have to understand how the customer buys.
Wayne, you've watched the startup ecosystem evolve dramatically over the past 2 decades. How has Ben Franklin evolved alongside it, and what trends are exciting or concerning you today?
Well, I think Ben Franklin, we're operating at a faster pace. I know we're investing in more deals. When I started at Ben Franklin 26 years ago, we were taking projects to the board every couple of months. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was 4 times a year. Now we're in there every month, and there are 3 to 6, sometimes more projects every month. So I think we're utilizing technology better. I think the team buys into that pace and that flow. So that's changed a lot. I worry a little bit about virtual teams, not for us, but for companies, so many companies show up and they're starting virtual. They've got a person here in the Lehigh Valley, but then one co-founder's in Washington and another co-founder's in Florida. You can make progress there and you can build a company, but I don't know if you can build greatness. And so I worry a little bit about where that evolves to.
Including AI?
Including AI. I mean, AI enables it even more.
Yeah.
And AI's got lots of great positive use cases, lots of great opportunity, but enabling that aspect of it. I mean, I'm hoping that we see sort of a return to the office. Like in our business, we see a lot of advanced materials companies that need lab space. In the lab, there's equipment. You can't really run a business like that virtually. There are people in the space, and our lab spaces are always full. But when you get into the software companies, they're just not. They're operating virtually, and I just don't know that that's as efficient. When you look back, you look back at the Bell Labs days. People bumping into each other, just casually brainstorming. That's a lot harder to do on a Teams DM. I mean, it just is.
Yeah.
And so I think the next generation coming up, the 25, 30-year-olds, I bet you we see them coming back into the office in bigger, for bigger chunks of time and in larger quantities.
There's something to be said for human connection, truly.
Yep.
As you look back on your career and the organization, what would you like your legacy to be? What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want your impact to have been?
Boy, well, if people just, hopefully when my name comes up in 20 years, they don't roll their eyes. As long as that happens, I think I've been pretty successful. I think I love the way that we have these relationships with clients. There's a lot of organizations, economic development organizations, financial organizations, they're very transactional. You apply, you get the money, you close out the contract, and that's it. I like the fact that we're forming these long-term relationships, and we're helpful to a company when it's 2 people and an idea, and later when there are 150 people, that there are other ways that we can help them at that point. So I hope we're still doing that in 20 years. Yeah,
and it sounds like you're prompting investment, and I don't know, maybe there'll be a building with your name on it at some point.
That's a long shot. That'll be embarrassing, frankly.
I'm going to ask you this last question before we wrap up here. Throughout your career, you've learned the most, not from success, but probably from failure and disappointment that you've, encountered with other people, like seen them go through the highs and the lows. What has that taught you about leadership and resilience, and how do you define success at this point?
Oh, yeah, that's a very self-reflective question. I think you can, and our CEO says this all the time. There are things you can control them. There are things you cannot control, and you just have to try to find a way to manage, the downfall, the problems that come out of those.
Yeah.
And, I think watching founders try to handle those failures, there's a fine line between resilience and delusion, I think. And I've had the conversation with some founders that, I think it's time to call it quits here. I think you've given this a good effort, and we've done all these different things, and you need to take care of yourself here. And so I don't know, I sort of forget the question conveniently because I don't think I had a good answer for it. But
no, I think you answered it perfectly. And you have to control how you react to things. I think is really what it boils down to.
For sure.
Yeah.
Never burn a bridge.
Yep.
Never, ever burn a bridge. You don't know when you got to go back across it, you know.
Wayne, listening to your story, one thing becomes abundantly clear. Innovation isn't simply about technology, it's about people willing to believe in possibilities before anyone else does. For decades, you've helped entrepreneurs move from uncertainty to opportunity, from ideas scribbled on a whiteboard to companies creating jobs, solving meaningful problems, and strengthening communities across Northeastern Pennsylvania. Your leadership reminds us that sometimes the greatest impact isn't measured by the companies you build yourself, but by the people you empower to build theirs. Thank you for sharing your journey, your insights, and your passion for entrepreneurship. And thank you for joining us on Trailblazers.